We'd like to welcome you back to our current event and weekly Bible study for February 1st, 2015. This is part 2. And this next YouTube video, we're going to be just playing up some portions of it. It is entitled Katy Perry, Illuminati Goddess in the 2015 Super Bowl halftime show. So, without further ado...
Katy Perry also talked about her return from Saturn in a song called By the Grace of God, where she says, I was 27 surviving my return of Saturn. And this is another astrological concept where Saturn makes its orbit around the sun, and it goes into this idea that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and you can rise from the ashes like the phoenix. Now, the symbol of Saturn goes into all of these ancient beliefs that I won't get into right now, but some of the people that worship these deities of Saturn include the Carthaginians and the Phoenicians, which is why we see this happening at the University of Phoenix Stadium. It's at the 33rd degree of latitude, which is a line that...
You see how we just covered that, but this is another confirmation on all of this? I mean, this is like really... This isn't by accident.
Versus the globe, and it also passes through not only Phoenix, but the city of Tyre, which is in Phoenicia. And it also passes through Baghdad, where the Tower of Babel was believed to exist. But the point is, it passes through all these cities where these ancient cultures first kind of used these pagan ideas of sacrificing children to Moloch, this deity, in order to appease this god. And this is why you see all the symbols of the devil horns and the mano cornuto hand throughout all of the music and film industries.
Now, I've done a whole study on the hook'em horn sign, mano cornuto sign, devil sign. You can key in just mano cornuto or hook'em horns or whatever sign, and you can hear that audio I did a long time ago. Here's Katy Perry doing the Hail Satan. Basically, it's called Hail Satan, is what it stands for. It's the one where the two middle fingers are turned down and the two outer fingers are turned up, and then it's like the devil horns. And here's her doing that with her tongue stuck out, which is something you see a lot of Miley Cyrus. You see that in Hinduism a lot, like with Kali, the goddess of death, will have their tongue stuck out like that. It is a satanic thing when you see those types of pictures.
Another aspect we can look at is the night the Super Bowl is going to be on. It's going to be on February 1st, which is Imbolg. It's a night of human sacrifice, which ties right into Moloch, because that was the deity that everyone used to sacrifice people to. Last year, we saw Philip Seymour Hoffman as a potential Illuminati blood sacrifice on this night of Imbolg. And this Imbolg was also used as a night to celebrate this Celtic pagan goddess, Brigid, the High One. And, you know, Imbolg was dedicated to Brigid, and she was basically a transformation of the Roman and Greek goddesses of Minerva and Athena, because they were all known for their attributes of learning and using poetry, which is, you know, appropriate and fitting because Katy Perry is a poet of sorts. So this is why we see the goddess ritual on Imbolg on February 1st at the Super Bowl. Katy Perry plays the role of the goddess Brigid, a.k.a. Minerva. Now, you might recognize Minerva, the owl god, from the Bohemian Grove cremation of care ceremony, or possibly with Drake's OVO label. He's obsessed with the owl. Or maybe even Katy Perry herself when she's holding the owl in promotional images. And one last kind of interesting thing, Stephen Colbert refers to the Super Bowl as the Superb Owl. Could he know about this Minerva agenda? Another thing we want to look at is the promotion of this ritual, because there was announcements that this is going to be an unprecedented multimedia global announcement. And we saw that there were triggered events and launchings of a certain video and a Twitter handle and all this stuff that were set in motion on November 23rd. And that included the ad for this Super Bowl halftime performance with Katy Perry doing the hand with the all-seeing eye emphasized, the left eye right there. It's the moon goddess eye, which is similar to when she was on the cover of V magazine with Madonna, giving us the Illuminati triad claw over her one eye. Another interesting aspect is that Pepsi is sponsoring this, and they're pushing this whole you only live once type stuff and this live for now mindset, And this whole concept of dying young is what Keisha was trying to push back with her song Die Young, which got pulled off the radio waves after the Sandy Hook shootings. And she even went on record and said that she didn't even want to sing that song. She was forced to sing that song. Then you fast forward a couple years, and she's talking about how her music producer was drugging and raping her. This is all indicative of the sickness within the music industry. Now, the idea that we live for the young is a push on Aleister Crowley's Aeon of Horus. He believes he ushered in this new age of Horus, which is the age of child god worship, and every man and every woman is a star. Well, that is why we see these online YouTube celebrities being just as famous as actual celebrities, and people like Zoella selling books, the world's fastest selling novel, and so if we take a look at the promo video again, we see Katy Perry getting out of a UFO. Well, why did she do that? Well, if you go back to this occult magic stuff, there was a guy named Kenneth Grant who started this branch of a magic occult group called the Typhonian OTO, and he branched off of Aleister Crowley. And
the OTO was started by Aleister Crowley. Ordo Templar Orientis is what it stands for. It's a very high-level ritualistic type of black magic that many times requires human sacrifice. And I've told the story before about my mom's friend Betty that had a daughter that was in that, and I tried to warn her, and Betty was a witch. She was flat out a witch. Had like a black box that she told my mom if she ever died, because I think my mom was like her only friend, and if she ever died, just get rid of the box, don't open it, whatever you do. And was obsessed with like Merlin and Camelot, and it was just pitiful. She was pitiful, and I got into conversations with her about Christianity, and she would flat out say, I'm a good pagan, and what I'm doing isn't wrong, and and her daughter joined the OTO in California, and Betty was good buddies with the high priest there, and her daughter turned up dead in a trunk one night, mutilated, from what I can remember, and she never blamed. I told Betty, I'm like, I had to. I'm like, Betty, you realize she was sacrificed. That's what the OTO does. She wouldn't believe me no matter what I said. I'm like Betty, I'm telling you, this is what the OTO does. Here's it off their own website. I printed out stuff for her. I said, listen, here's what they do. Here's what they believe. They believe some of the stuff they believe about salvation is so disgusting and blasphemous, I can't even repeat it. It's so nasty, and I can't repeat it on air. And I printed out all the stuff and gave it to her. It didn't matter. She wouldn't believe me. But I guarantee you she had either gotten out of line, this girl, or it was her time. And she was ritualistically sacrificed by the OTO. So they were talking about here is a branch off of the OTO.
And use some of his Thelema stuff. But he basically focuses on communication with extraterrestrials. He evokes these spirits from another dimension. And they channel these deities using these high-profile rituals, which is what Katy Perry will be doing at the Super Bowl halftime show. This is why Katy Perry was in the music video E.T., the extraterrestrial. That's Katy Perry.
And she's got reptilian slits in her eyes. Okay, another very common theme. So they're communicating with these ETs. They're interbreeding with I did a whole study on this video as well. And interbreeding with the ETs, becoming them, glorifying them, communicating with them. The ETs, the extraterrestrials, the aliens are here to bring us from our current state of humanity and usher us into this New World Order, godlike state, our next step in evolution. And so these types of videos are symbolic of that.
Not to mention that Phoenix was also the location of the world's most well-documented instance of alien invasion with the Phoenix Lights issue. And we saw the Phoenix mayor coming out and trying to play it off at a press conference and making a joke about it. Well, then years later he comes out and says that that he regrets even mocking it because he said it was real.
I blocked it out because he uses DAMN, and so that's why I blocked this couple sound clips out. But the Phoenix, the mayor of Phoenix had come out where they had the Phoenix Light, the probably the biggest mass sighting of UFOs ever, and even he came out and said it was real.
So that leads us into why. Why would the Illuminati want to do this? Well, it has to do with the power of the Super Bowl. It's the most watched program on American television every year. Over 100 million visitors. You get this large focus of energy.
Okay, again, a large focus of energy that is being funneled into witchcraft. Okay, now, they had talked about, at the start of that video, about the hexagram, about the six-pointed star, which is not a good thing. It's not the Star of David. It was never associated with Israel. Okay? This is something that's a modern aberration. This is something where they've been conned into believing. I did a whole study on this where I proved this, and it's called The Hexagram, the Mark of the Beast, and the Hebrew Roots Connection. It's a part 1 and 2. I give you the links here, and in the PDF. It'll probably be on page 3 or 4. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of the table of context. The hexagram star was mentioned and condemned by God of Israel in Amos 5:26, and it was called by him the star of your god Molech, or otherwise Chun. Reference was also made to the Israelites having the star of Remphan in the wilderness in Acts 7:43 by Stephen right before he was actually sacrificed, stoned to death, Stephen. All of these names refer to the god Saturn. Okay, this hexagram star, the six-pointed star. Not the five-pointed pentagram, this is the six-pointed. Known, now the name Saturn in Chaldee is produced Satyr. But as every Chaldee scholar knows, consists of only 4 letters, S-T-U-R. Which, if you numerically add up the letters of this name, you have 666. This is from Alexander Hislop, page 269 in his book, I believe, The Two Babylons. So the letter S equals 60, the letter T equals 400, U equals 6, and R equals 400. And that adds up to 666. So now Saturn is also the 6th planet from the Sun. It has 6 letters. And Saturn is also associated with Satan, which has a very similar spelling. So that just kind of ties into this as well. Now, I have done a ton of studies on the whole alien agenda. And what I've done for your convenience is I went through and I tried to gather them all together into one spot and post them here in this PDF. And so I have the study I did on July 18th, 2011, entitled Preparation for the Alien UFO Deception in High Gear, parts 1 through 4 with the PDF, and then a couple end-time current event studies where I got into the alien agenda, and then the next study was called Vatican Easing Humanity Toward Alien Disclosure. That's from 2008. And then the one I did in 2013, Eminent ET Disclosure in World Government. Then the study I did in 2009, the UFO Alien Phenomenon, the Next Great Challenge for the Church, parts 1, 2, and 3. Then UFOs, Aliens, Fallen Angels, Nephilim in the Days of Noah from 2007. Another one entitled Strong Delusion, ETs, Aliens, UFO, Nephilim, and the Grenada Treaty, which is something that you might not be aware of. That's part 1 and 2 there that I gave you. And then I did a two-part teaching entitled Subterranean Secrets Revealed, Underground Bases and the Nephilim. Nephilim is the word that the giants are translated from in Genesis 6, which in Hebrew means the fallen ones. The Nephilim were the giants that were produced from the union of the fallen angels and women. And like the Bible talks about in Genesis 6, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives off that they chose, and then these women bore them these giants, these Nephilim, these fallen ones. And you could say, well, no, that's the godly line of Seth, which, okay, if it's the godly line of Seth, why did it produce such a wicked, giant-like, unhuman offspring? It doesn't even make any sense whatsoever. And then you look at, okay, well, let's look at usage. Where's the sons of God? Where's that term used at in the Old Testament? Not the new, the old. Okay, we'll just do a keyword search for it. You'll see, I believe, 3 or 4 other examples. They all occur in Job, and it's always in reference to angels. Always. That term. I understand in the New Testament, that term is used as a born-again Bible believer. But in the Old Testament, it is used in regard to angels, the sons of God. And this is before they fell. Okay? Once they fell, they were not the sons of God anymore. But when they were looking upon the daughters of men, they hadn't fallen yet. Then they fell, and then they were fallen angels. They wouldn't have been referred to as sons of God. Fact remains is they were angels. They interbred with humans, with the human women. And you'd say, well, there's no evidence in the New Testament of that whatsoever. Oh, yes, there is, actually. All you have to do is look at Jude, verse 6 and 7. And the angels, these are the angels that the Bible talked about, Genesis 6. Okay. Now remember, I just gave you a plethora of teachings where I go into this in depth. I'm just going to give you a Cliff Note version of this. The angels, which kept not their first estate. What was their first estate? Heaven. What does that word estate mean? Abode. Home. Okay, I'm giving you the underlying meanings of what it actually means. So the angels, they kept not their first estate. Okay, but left their own habitation. These are the angels that fell in Genesis 6. He hath reserved in everlasting chains under the darkness, under the judgment of the great day. Even, okay, so now we're going to get a similar, comparable, parallel analogy. Now, in verse 7. So, even as Sodom and Gomorrah, they're comparing Sodom and Gomorrah to the angels which left their first estate. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner. Remember, this is a parallel example. Giving themselves over to fornication. What did the angels do in Genesis 6? Well, they saw the daughters of men. They took them wives out that they'd chosen. The wives bore them giants. Well, obviously, that's a sexual sin in God's eyes. Okay? Angels are not meant to mate or procreate with human women. Okay, just like men are not meant to be with men sexually, and women are not meant to be with women. Now, God annihilated Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities in like manner because that was going on. That's what God thinks of homosexuality. And He doesn't change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So, this is a really, really grievous thing to God, whether it's homosexuality or whether it's angels mating with human women. It is a grievous, grievous thing, and God annihilates those wherever that is taking place eventually. I mean, He had to wipe out the whole earth with a flood. It had gotten so bad. Okay? So, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh. See, the angels going after a human woman was going after strange flesh, just like a man going after a man is strange flesh. It's out of order. It's not right. It's not something they should be doing. Going after strange flesh are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. So I mean, that's just one of the proofs that angels, these angels fell and mated with human women and bore them giants. I mean, the Bible's very clear on it. You know, you don't even need the Book of Enoch to prove this. You don't need that. You don't need any other extra. The Book of Enoch, the first parts of it, will tend to shed light on that. And I only recommend the one that's the blue hardcover that has the parallel verses with the King James Bible. It was translated by Baptist Press. It's the only one I've ever. And I don't say it's canon. I don't say it's equal with the Bible. But the Bible does refer to the Book of Enoch. Okay, I think on like 2 occasions. You know, so to say all the Book of Enoch is just garbage. Okay, fine. I don't even need the Book of Enoch. There's enough other verses in there to prove that this actually happened. And as it was in the days of Noah, what was going on in Noah's day? If you took a news crew back, what was the major story? If you came back, I mean, yeah, you could say the flood was, but I'm talking before that. What led up to the flood? What caused the flood? Okay? Giants. Fallen angels procreating with human women. This defiled the land. They defiled the flesh. They literally were trying to defile the seed line of mankind. They were trying to corrupt the DNA so that the Savior could not come through mankind, as had been predicted in Genesis, I believe, 3. That was why it was happening, or at least in part. You kill all the humans, well, then there's no Savior for humanity. You defile their DNA. Well, Jesus Christ isn't going to come back and die on the cross to save a bunch of hybrid Nephilim, to save a bunch of non-human entities. He's not going to do that. That's why he had to preserve the animals and the people on the ark, because their DNA hadn't been corrupted. And he had to essentially start over. That's why that all had to happen. It wasn't because God was trying to be cruel. He had no choice. I mean, if it had gone on another 100 years, they would have got and Noah and them would have died then, or maybe they got to Noah and killed them. There would have been nobody left that hadn't been defiled, or at least maybe in God's eyes that wouldn't have sold out to Satan. Anyway, the studies that I just went over, and I didn't even get done listing them all, go into this in detail over and over and over again. And but the cemeteries, they teach it's the godly line of Seth that they were in reference to that bore them. This is the reason they all had giants. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. It's laughable. So anyway, then I have another study called The Return of the Nephilim, Hollywood Preparing the Way. And then another one, Nephilim, Sons of God, Fallen Angels, Demons, Evil Spirits, Tartaros, which is a special compartment of hell for the fallen angels, the Sons of Seth, and the Daughters of Cain. Those theories. We explore all that in this study. So I've tried to really, over the years, hit this from every possible, conceivable direction. And then I did a End Time Current Event Bible study on 1/27/2013, where I had parts 2, 3, and 4. Also got into this. So I've done a ton of studies on this. They're all here in one spot that you can reference if this is like the first time you've ever heard this. Now, another thing that we were talking about here was the whole ushering in the New World Order, ushering in the Antichrist, ushering in the false prophet. And what has to go into that? A lot of massive amounts of witchcraft, and obviously a global public that is willing to receive the Antichrist and false prophet and worship them as their gods, essentially. So that's going to take a lot of strong delusion. That's going to take a lot of demonic, fallen angelic blinding of the masses. And one of the candidates, or one of the candidates for Antichrist, one of the candidates for being a major player in this end time delusion is Maitreya. He calls himself Lord Maitreya. And I've talked about him, done many studies. I give you the studies on that. I'm not saying he's the Antichrist. I do think, though, that Maitreya and the Ascended Masters, they're this cadre of supposedly enlightened beings, are going to play a major part in this end time deception. And of all entities that we see the United Nations and the world governments getting behind, that they're in their own writings pointing to, the United Nations in particular actually sponsored Maitreya's website, and I'm sure still do. They just do it behind the scenes. They actually literally put it up originally. They're pointing to Maitreya and these Ascended Masters for the coming, ushering us into this new world order. This one world government, this one world political system, this one world economic system that the Bible predicts. So Maitreya, right off his own website at Share International, it says, many now expect the return of their awaited teacher, whether they call him the Christ, the Messiah. Now, the Christ to the Christians, the Messiah to the Jews, the fifth Buddha to the Buddhists, the Krishna to the Hindus, and Imam Mahdi, which is the ones that the Muslims are awaited. These are their awaited saviors, okay? Also known as the 13th Imam, I believe. Millions now know that the one who fulfills all of these expectations, Maitreya, the world teacher, is already living among us and is gradually emerging into full public recognition. Maitreya has not come alone, but with a group of wise men, the masters of wisdom. Why don't they call themselves the masters of disaster? They could be like a pro wrestling team, like an ascended master pro wrestling team, and they could come out and have like multiple tag team wars, maybe against one another, because I guess nobody could really go against them. Maybe like Andre the Giant could. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just bouncing some stuff off y'all. Anyway, so the Masters of Wisdom, who have long worked from behind the scenes as the inspirers, teachers and guides of humanity, they are returning to the everyday world to help us solve our most critical problems. Their priorities. Maitreya has formulated a number of simple priorities that demand immediate and worldwide attention. Now see, yes, the false prophet and the Antichrist are going to come with all signs and lying wonders and miracles, motivated by witchcraft, or with the jet fuel for all that is witchcraft. That's what's going to make all that happen. But they're also going to come with a very nice, tickle your ear. The Bible talks about him coming as a man of peace. He's going to seem like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Most likely they're going to be the ones that end World War III. Get everybody playing nice, even Muslims and Jews playing nice, all on the same page. The whole world's going to marvel at the beast and say, who else could do such a thing but the beast? Who else could get Muslims and Jews and all the world religions playing nicely together in the same sandbox? Who else could do such a thing but the beast? Okay? And this is how he's going to come. He's going to come, and Satan is always, the most subtle beast of the field. He's not going to come with like horns, hooved, cloven hooves, and a pitchfork and a pointy red tail. That's not how he's going to come. This goes on to say, this is right off Maitreya's website, these cover the essential needs of every man. Now these are the simple priorities that demand immediate attention worldwide. Okay. These cover the essential needs of every man, woman, and child. An adequate supply of food, housing for all, access to health care, and education as universal rights. Another top priority is the restoration of the environment. Now, can you imagine if these entities come along with all the suffering in the world, with all the poverty, with all the starvation, that true enough, that the Illuminati has caused this. I mean, the depopulation agenda, the wars that have been... We just talked about how we're... America's so much behind funding ISIS and these types of things. Can you imagine if these group of enlightened beings or whatever came and said, oh, listen, you got all this corruption, you got all... No, what we're going to give you is, we're going to supply all your needs, every man, woman, child, food, housing, access to healthcare, education. Man, people are going to just line up in droves. Then you're going to have the signs, lying wonders, and miracles to top that off, like the satanic cherry on top of the satanic sundae. Okay, people are going to fall for this hook, line, and sinker. Most people. Maitreya will inspire us to create a new civilization based on sharing and justice, freedom and peace, so that they may have the basic necessities of life in a world free and want in war, free of war. Now remember, if he comes and they're the instrumental things that supposedly stop World War III, it's going to appear as though he's really backing up what he's saying here. Stop World War III, I got a nice house, I got healthcare, I got food, I got water. This guy's great. Where do I sign up? I'll take the mark of the beast, I'll worship this guy. I mean, this is pretty much what they're banking on. Now, we also see here, I posted a picture here of the sign of this is one of the main symbols of Maitreya, and it's the hexagram. Said the 6-point star, and on each one of the points it has a different symbol for different religions of the world. One's for Jews that has the hexagram, and a big hexagram, and then on each point it has like one's a hexagram, one's a cross, one's the moon, the crescent moon, with for the Islamic religion. So anyway, that if you want to see what the symbol looks like, it's here in the PDF. So let's go further here. So this is off his website. Maitreya has been based in an Asian community of London since July of 1977, gradually emerging into full public view. He's a hot dog vendor, actually, in London. He sells the footlong chili cheese dogs, and that's what he's been doing to make a living, you know, up until the time when he actually proclaims himself to be, you know, the Christ and the satanic Antichrist. Anyway, just kidding. So, artist, author, and lecturer Benjamin Creme has for 40 years been preparing the way for this extraordinary event. In December of 2008, Mr. Creme announced that in the very near future, a bright star would appear in the sky, visible throughout the world night and day, heralding the imminent appearance of Maitreya. In his first interview on a U.S. major TV network, within weeks, reports from all over the world of an unusually bright star, often seen moving and changing color, began to appear in the media and on the internet. You can see the reports here. Now, I've done individual studies on all of these things that I give you the links to, where we talked about this when it was happening or shortly thereafter. On January 14th, 2010, Benjamin Creme announced that Maitreya had given his first interview on an American television and that millions had heard him speak both on the television and the internet. You know, I just really like to see a post to the interview. It's the thing with Benjamin Creme in this. It's always like, you know, yes, this happened, but there's no proof of it anywhere. You know, it was some nebulous figure that had some interview that wasn't recorded, but yet millions saw him. Where's the proof? You know, so, I mean, it's not that I'm not skeptical. I think a lot of these things, though, much of the time, is that Satan has an agenda, Satan has maybe a plan, and God just keeps throwing monkey wrenches into it. So he wants a certain thing to happen. They want to have Maitreya come out, but God is withholding that or keeping that from happening. And as more people are made aware of these things and more people pray about it, the odds of that, of monkey wrenches being thrown into Satan's plans are greater. And this is a big reason I have this ministry. So it says, Mr. Creme explained he was introduced not as Maitreya, the world teacher, the head of the spiritual hierarchy, but simply as a man, one of us. In this way, he ensures that men follow and support him for the truth and sanity of his ideas rather than for his stats. I like it how they're capitalizing his, like he's some deity now. He spoke earnestly for the need of peace, achievable only through the creation of justice and the sharing of the world's resources. Yeah, whatever. It's all tickling your ears garbage, is all you're going to see. This monster is going to be worse than Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, Mao Zedong, any Obama all combined together. Okay, this is most likely either the false prophet or Antichrist, or very close to the top of the food chain there. Maitreya has now given 146 television interviews, none of which I've ever seen. Okay, I'd really like to know which one it was. As of October 2014 in America, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, and China, and more expected to take place around the world. Yeah, okay, well, why don't you show me, please? Anyway, Maitreya's open mission has begun, and he himself has said, soon, very now soon, you will see my face and hear my words. Now, I'm not saying that because I don't think eventually these ascended devil masters aren't going to make their big debut. But I just think that God's thrown a lot of monkey wrenches, so it looks like they have egg on their face, and God's just showing them to be the liars that they are. You know? Anyway, it goes on to say, when men shall see me, this is Maitreya's final quote, when men shall see me for the first time and know me for what I am, they will find themselves changing inwardly. Many will, for the first time, return to the joy of childhood. So if you're in your living room, and let's say you're not even in a good mood, and all of a sudden you just want to start frolicking in the field, you know what I mean? Or running around the front yard and rolling in the grass and just acting like a kid, you know, and frolicking everywhere. Just remember, you might have just been touched by the Maitreya-nator. I'm telling you, because he said it right here. He says, many will, for a time, return to the joy of childhood and find the world a better home thereby. I'm convinced. I mean, where do I sign up? Many will feel strengthened in their desire to serve and place themselves in the forefront of change. Oh, these are the ones on whom I shall call for the task of replenishment of man's spirit and joy. Wow. Believe, if you can, that I am with you, ready to use my strength on your behalf. Believe, if you can, my friends. And he even capitalizes my friends, like my friends, he capitalizes the M. This is what an ego this devil has. Believe, if you can, my friends, that I'm eagerly awaiting the day of my open return. End of quote. That was from Maitreya, the world teacher, October 7th, 2014. Share-symbolinternational.org if you want to check out the site. And they have all kind of their occult reading list that they have up there. It's all, they recommend you read Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and all of the women that trans-channel demons in order to write all of these books, you know, and that's their recommended reading list. So that's that. So you have that. I haven't covered this subject in a while, and I thought this was kind of an appropriate time to kind of revisit some of this. Okay, so what I did is, if you've never heard about any of this, I just briefly covered that. I've done a lot of different teachings on Maitreya, and one I did way back in 2007. I give you the links here in the PDF. Lord Maitreya, the Antichrist, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying he is a candidate, okay, for that. And just to give you a little background, in this teaching, I will be taking a shocking, in-depth look at Maitreya, aka Devil Betraya, which is what we always like to refer to him as, to see what part he and his ascended master crew will most likely play in the end-time deception the Bible so clearly predicts. For a preview to this teaching, you can go to this particular link at Share International, and since 1988, Maitreya has appeared miraculously throughout the world, mainly to Orthodox religious groups, presenting in the simplest terms the great spiritual laws governing our lives. And though steadily increasing signs and spiritual manifestations now widely reported in the media, he is preparing them for his imminent appearance, the day of declaration, in which, now this is the day of declaration, in which Maitreya will demonstrate his true identity. The international television networks will be linked together, and Maitreya will be invited to the world to speak. We will see his face on television, but each of us will hear his words telepathically in our own language as Maitreya simultaneously impresses the minds of all humanity. Now, could you imagine if this devil is able to pull this off? And I really do believe with enough witchcraft going out there, you know, they could do this. And now, not only that, but all of the technology they have, you know, where you can actually simulate this type of, and I've got into that in previous teachings, the whole skull to brain, how you can hear voices in your head. They have that technology already here. So at the same time, hundreds of thousands of spontaneous healings will take place throughout the world as you're hearing Maitreya's voice in your head. Okay? And so you'll hear Maitreya in your head saying, eat at McDonald's, order a Big Mac, or something like that. And then simultaneously, there's going to be spontaneous healings taking place throughout the world. So, I mean, that's going to be pretty impressive, you know? Anyway, sorry. But, yeah, that's what he's claiming that he's going to do. Now, the next one, and this is also one that heavily relates to this, it's entitled, the study I did, February 1st, 2009, Deception Afoot, Maitreya and Master Jesus, also known as Esau Emmanuel Sananda. Now, this is the long-haired, Adonis-looking Jesus that we'll typically see in churches or in the Catholic Church and these types of things. Okay, it's not what Jesus looks like. Those were originally started by, well, I give you the history. I've given you the history in recent. Michelangelo played into it, but I believe his name was Cesar Borrega. He was the son of a pope. And that was the actual image that was painted, and they said, this is Jesus, you know, this is what he looked like, and this was like hundreds of years after Jesus had died. So, don't believe that. Anyway, this is a whole study on this Master Jesus, one of these ascended masters that's going to come back with Maitreya. Now, this is from 2009. It says Share International, and this was actually happening then. I think they really wanted to roll this out back in 2009. I never saw a more concerted effort for this to happen other than this particular time in 2009. But it didn't happen, and I really believe is that God did not permit it to happen. It might have been on Satan's timeline, but it wasn't on God's, and I believe there was enough prayer going up that stopped this. Share International is now advertising Maitreya's emergence on the History Channel, Rush Limbaugh, Nancy Grace, Anderson Cooper 360, and the Wall Street Journal. I heard the commercials. I mean, a ton of my listeners heard them or saw them advertised. They were literally advertising on, I mean, these are like History Channel, Rush Limbaugh, Nancy Grace, Anderson 3 Cooper, Wall Street Journal, reputable supposedly reputable secular media were advertising for Maitreya's emergence. This was going on back in 2009. Maitreya seems to have a strangely similar share and save the world agenda to that of purpose-driven pastor Rick Warren and his global PEACE plan, peace plan, which I've also covered in previous teachings, and also President-elect Barack Obama with his global Poverty Act and Universal Service Plan. Men who apparently have no aversion to working with any or all the world religions or non-religions to, quote, save the planet. Share International says Maitreya is coming with the satanic counterfeit Master Jesus. This is what Share International is saying, which is Maitreya's website, which was United Nations sponsored. Okay, in collaboration with Maitreya, the Master Jesus is deeply interested in unifying the religious thought of East and West. According to the plan, this will lead to a one universal church. So he is going to be, this Master Jesus is going to be really primarily responsible for uniting the world's religions, but particularly with uniting the Christian religions initially to get them all on the same playing field. Okay? According to the plan, this will lead to a one universal church, uniting all peoples into the one humanity. It is forecast that Master Jesus will yet occupy the chair of the Pope of Rome. What better place to unite all the world religions? Particularly ones that have a Christian veneer. And from that seat, he will then be able to re-inspire and reorient the whole field of Christian religion, diverting it from its present political and temporal trends toward a more spiritual approach. He's going to tell you that you got the Bible all wrong. Don't believe in it. Believe in what I'm telling you. So again, you better be rooted in the Word of God. You better be rooted in your faith needs to be rooted in the Lord Jesus Christ. The Bible says, they that endure to the end, the same shall be saved. He that overcometh will I give unto. The Bible talks about that a lot in Revelation. You know, and so this is called the testing of your faith, to see if you're going to maintain faith through the trials and tribulations, through all the deception. Remember, the Bible says that there's going to be many false prophets and you know, the Antichrist and false preachers and teachers and all of these things. And if it were possible, these false devils shall deceive the very elect, if it were possible. So just, you need to be on guard and always understand that we're going to be under the amount of deception. If you think it's bad now, it's only going to get a lot worse. Especially with the signs and lying wonders and miracles. A lot of people are going to fall for this stuff hook, line, and sinker just based off that. So, it goes on to say, could you explain the relationship between the disciple Jesus and Maitreya the Christ? And this is from Share International's website. And their answer is, by the occult process of overshadowing, the Christ, Maitreya, took over and worked through the body of Jesus from baptism onwards. So what they're saying is that Jesus, when he started his ministry, when John the Baptist baptized him, and he started his official ministry, he went from there, he fasted, and then you know, the 3.5 years where he did all the miracles and these types of things. Jesus Christ, they're saying that the only reason he was able to do that is because Maitreya overtook him and worked through his body in those last 3.5 years. So these blasphemous devils have to take credit for that as well. This is pure blasphemy. Okay, so, and then we've got the study I did entitled George Norrie Interviews Benjamin Creme, Maitreya's Emergence and the Star Signs, of part 1 and 2 study. It's part 3, and the table of contents reads, here the recent 7/31/09 interview that caused George Norrie to become physically ill, causing him to stop interviewing Benjamin Creme. This is like the Pied Piper. This is like the John the Baptist from Maitreya, Benjamin Creme. George Norrie had to stop the interview with Benjamin Creme. This has never happened to Mr. Norrie in his plus 5,000 interviews. Now remember, this guy interviews witches and warlocks and occultists all the time, George Norrie. But only the Benjamin Creme interview, he had to stop. He couldn't keep going. He was so shook up. You will also see that this happened to many of his listeners as well that were listening to the interview. You can actually hear the interview. I believe I play it. He had to stop it. Listen as Creme discloses that the heralding in of Maitreya is not by a star as he has proposed in the past, but rather the supposed star will be and are 4 separate gigantic UFOs that will appear in 4 distinct quadrants of the Earth. Huh, we ever heard of that before? District 9 and all these other sci-fi shows where these UFOs show up over on major planets. Oh, V? Yeah, that was another one. And then the last part of it, we will be looking at how Hollywood movies like District 9 and the upcoming miniseries V are preparing the masses for this very exact scenario. So, I'm just telling you, if nothing is to come of all this, boy, they've sure wasted a lot of effort. Hollywood and Satan and everybody's wasted a lot of effort if nothing's going to come of this. Here's a picture here of Maitreya, a real one, from when he made his appearance in Kenya. One of the more ones where he looks really, really evil. And then I also did a study on 2007, Mars, Lord Maitreya, the Ascended Masters, and Strong Delusion. I'll give you that. Links to that as well. Okay, so I'm out of time for part 2, so I'm going to stop here and we're going to go to part 3 next.